Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Two ways you can interact with the show. You can email me questions, zach@zachballinger.com. We have our career library going on, as well as career experts and business people coming on to answer your questions. We are streaming live via YouTube, so if you have any questions, pop those into the comment box. Without further ado, Mike, thank you so much for joining the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Zach.
Yeah, so Mike, we want to learn a little bit about your career. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'm an attorney licensed in the great state of Michigan, although these mountains behind me are in Arizona. And I've been practicing, like I said, almost 30 years. Went to school in Arizona, went back to Detroit for law school. We have the, the largest personal injury firm in Michigan, handling auto accidents and dog bites and slip and falls and the typical stuff that you see there. Have about 150 legal professionals working for us, and having a lot of fun doing it.
Awesome. Now, how did you get it? How did you know you wanted to be a lawyer? You know, I have a lot of students and millennials ask me, how do I know if law is for me?
Yeah, well, for me, it was easy. My dad was an attorney. He loved the law. I've always wondered if there was a study, how many people follow in their parents' footsteps, because I think that'd be high. So for me, it was easy because my dad loved it. He took me to the office when I was a kid every Saturday morning, and we had a really good time. We connected on the way to the office, at the office. I would watch him in court. I'd watch him interact with his staff, with clients. We had a nice life. You know, he made a nice living, and it was just kind of all easy, and there was nothing else that really struck me in high school and college. So right after high school, I went right to law school. And, you know, for people who are questioning it, I have 3 daughters, 2 of them who are in college now. So we're having some of these conversations. You know, I have a ton of friends who have a law degree who don't practice law. I mean, a ton. And it really is a good general education, teaching you how to think, teaching you how to be organized, teaching you how to research, teaching you how to argue and persuade people. And I think, you know, it's a wonderful background, even if you don't practice law, no matter what you do. I have real estate developers who've never stepped foot in a courtroom who love their background and law degree. People who do lots of different things. So I don't think you can go wrong with a law degree.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, we've had a couple of attorneys on before, but they were different types of law. So we had HR law, we had different types. Now, your particular law, you really focus on the personal injury law, correct?
That's correct.
And could you explain for the audience what that means? Because, you know, people are wondering, oh, there's different types of lawyers now. So just explain what that entails.
Well, in a general sense, there are criminal defense or prosecutors, and there are civil lawyers. That's really, there's only 2 types of lawyers. Either you're in the criminal side or the defense, or the civil side. Now, civil is everything, you know, from real estate to injury to, you know, immigration to everything else. I chose to focus on injury law for the plaintiffs. So if somebody gets hurt, we file a claim, we file a lawsuit, and we get paid only if we win the case. Most lawyers bill hourly, and they get paid win or lose. You know, if you want a house closing, they bill you to do that. If you want to, you know, if you any other type of law, if you're buying a building, or you know, you need lawyers for immigration, or you need lawyers for bankruptcy, you're paying no matter what, win or lose. In my field, it's a little risky because if we don't win our cases, you know, we don't eat, we don't make money. So that's the, you know, I like that type of law. I like, because it makes us work harder, makes us focused. If you know, we have to win. And so my phone number is 855-MIKE-WINS. And so if we don't win, like I said, we may not be able to pay the bills.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for sharing that. What do you love about your job? You know, you've been doing it for 30 years, so that's a long time. What gets you going?
Oh my God. Well, the winning doesn't suck. And the freedom that it gives you, you know, as a lawyer, you get to say yes or no to a client. So if I have a client who says, I broke my finger and I want $10 million. I'm like, well, we can't get you $10 million. And if you really want $10 million, we're not going to take you on as a client. So we have a ton of freedom. You get to choose what kind of law you want to practice, what kind of clients you want to take. If you want to diversify and say, hey, I'm going to learn about this type of law, I want to take on these types of cases. So you could be creative, and lawyers, you're creative in your arguments, creative in your filings, creating where you want to file a case, what jurisdiction you want to be in, what state you want to be in. So I like the freedom. I like the creativity. I love my clients. I love going in front of judges and arguing and persuading juries that you're right and the defense is wrong. There's so many things I love about this job, and those are just a few.
That's awesome. It's almost like, your personal trainer. When you get an established book of business, you kind of know if the client's not motivated, then they can easily turn them down because they're like, well, you have to lay off the Oreos if you're expecting to lose 30 pounds. I can't just do it all. So it's kind of neat. You and as well, since you have a lot of experience and tenure, that you're able to take on the cases that you feel are best. What's difficult about it? Somebody's out there listening. They're like, gee, lawyer sounds pretty cool. Got your JD and, you argue in front of judges, but there's got to be difficulties in every career. For sure. There are difficulties because you're dealing with courts and judges who, are running their own agenda, especially right now during COVID. Most of the courts are closed. So you're dealing with those problems. Most lawyers don't know how to run a business, aren't great business people. So actually, we wrote a book last year to help lawyers and other businesses run a business called Fireproof. And we're on the Amazon bestseller list, which is kind of a crazy ride. It was out last June, and we've sold thousands of books that we didn't even realize we were going to sell. So running a business, most people don't understand what it takes. And so I'm actually out here talking and trying to teach people and train people how to run businesses. So that's probably the hardest part, that realizing that it's a business. It took me 13 years to realize that being a lawyer and opening a firm is a business. Most lawyers don't see it that way. They just want to handle cases and don't want to run a business. Most business owners I know don't know what it takes to run a business. So this is a new part of my career where I'm out here talking and coaching and talking about the book to help people understand what it's like to work on a business. Because most people are running their businesses in the business. I'm trying to teach people what it's like to be on top of their business, overseeing a business. And it's a challenge for most people. I really like that. I think you're doing a really good service, because I'm sure there's a lot of young lawyers who graduate law school are just thinking one thing, and that's the legal matter, just like physicians that graduate medical school and they're thinking of one thing, is helping patients. So, I don't think we were born always with business skills. You have to learn those. So I think that's pretty cool. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. I think that's cool what you're doing out there. So as an attorney, what does a typical day look like? I always encourage my students or millennials out there to job shadow, to jump in somebody's shoe, follow them around. We can't really do that with the coronavirus now. So if we were to come virtually with you, Mike, what does a day look like by the time you get up in the morning and by the time you go to bed? Well, like you said, Zach, it's completely different now during COVID. Back in the day, last year, I was in the office, 8 to 6, and clients and court and internal meetings and all that. And we're still doing that, just virtually. And so it's really interesting. I talked to a lawyer yesterday who thinks, as sick as this is going to sound, how good COVID has been for him, because he can be anywhere in the world. He can still practice. The lawyers who used to have to drive from court to court to court now can be in 10 courts in a day in different jurisdictions. So it's kind of nutso right now. I'm on calls all day with courts and clients and coaching clients and staff members and my executive team, leadership team. I was on one at 5:30 this morning for 90 minutes, making sure that the numbers are right, making sure that the clients are being taken care of, how we're dealing with COVID, how we're dealing with all these new protocols. So my day's full. I've been up for hours and hours and hours, and I love it because the days go by very quickly.
and they're interesting. And, you know, with Zoom, you're doing a million things. I have people at my firm and my team telling me they're more busy now than they were before COVID, which is kind of a head scratcher in my opinion, but it's kind of interesting.
Certainly connects a lot more of us all around the world for sure. So, let's go back in a time machine, and you're a young man, so we won't have to journey that far back. But if you were in second, third, fourth, fifth grade, did you have a dream career you always wanted to be? And it doesn't have to be a lawyer.
Well, that's a good question, Zach. I mean, my first memory is that, I wanted to be a firefighter, policeman, FBI agent. I think most 10-year-old boys go through that phase. I went through a phase in middle school. I think I thought about being a doctor. And then I think I hit my first science class and I said, nah, it's not for me. And then again, I've been going to court and going to law firms with my dad since I was 10 or younger. And as I really started to have to think about it in high school, that it was just kind of a no-brainer because he made it look so fun. So it was just that was just an easy career choice for me.
Yeah, and isn't it neat how some of that aligns with what you're doing as far as criminal? When you mentioned the police agent, firefighter, FBI, it kind of, I think sometimes our dreams can be in our childhood if we kind of look back a little bit and stir some things up. So that's why I asked that question. What does it take to be a lawyer? So I get that question a lot. I think our high school students need to realize that it's not simply a 4-year degree where you go 4 years and you're a lawyer. So can you walk us through that, what schooling looks like, competitive landscape, all that?
Yeah. Well, the good news is there's a ton of law schools, and it really doesn't matter what law school you go to. It just doesn't. The law degree is 3 years. It's after a 4-year degree, so it's 7 years a total of education. If you go to night school and law school, I believe that is 4 years. There's now some hybrid programs where you can get a JD MBA, a JD CPA. I've seen a lot of those. I did not do that. You have to be prepared. Listen, first year law school is brutal. I can't even tell you how many thousands of pages you have to read and comprehend. So you have to like reading. Our law school, it's competitive when you're in it, but I'll tell you, just listen, I tell my kids this, to this day, nobody's ever looked at my grades. I worked my butt off to make sure I had good grades, but nobody to this day has ever looked at my grades. And I'm running a big law firm right now. So, I think that you can lose track of that. And I lost track of that when I was in law school. I fought really hard. I did graduate top 10. I did graduate with, cum laude and other distinctions, but it means not a ton. It's more important to learn. It's more important to get jobs, like you said, shadowing and mentoring and law clerking and working for people who are actually running law firms and other businesses. This is for anybody looking for a job. It's like, get a job. I tell lawyers, young lawyers, law students, I like you working in law firms better than working in the courts. A lot of people want to work for judges, but unless you're going to be a judge, which is 1 out of a million lawyers, you're going to work in a law firm one day. Work in a law firm, learn how to write, learn how to deal with people, learn how to take assignments, learn how to take critique, have people critique your writing, ask questions, ask if you could follow people to court. These are all super important things. I taught law school for a few years, and this is the same advice that I gave my students: get a job.
Awesome. Great advice. And I think on the grades portion, you're meaning once you get in, really start to learn, because when you're going to hire a doctor, if you have an illness, or you're hiring a lawyer because you have a legal problem, you don't really say, hey, Mike, what's your GPA before we get started on my legal matter. It's more of what experience you have and what have you done. So same for doctors. I can't remember the last time I've asked a doctor what his GPA was in medical school. So what is, And what kind of skills do you think you need to be a successful lawyer? You know, you mentioned some of the business skills, but what about just practicing law? What kind of skills you mentioned? I think good reading, argumentative skills. What else should people know that they need to kind of develop?
Listening. You got to be a really good listener. I try really hard not to interrupt people. I try really hard to listen. I haven't learned anything talking. And so that's the first thing that came to me. You know, you got to learn, you got to have patience. You got to have compassion. You got to be organized, and, you know, you got to like to read. You got to be a good writer. I mean, eventually you can delegate some of that stuff, but, you know, writing skills are important. They teach you how to research in law school. So I didn't know how to research before law school, but you got to be, you know, you got to research things. No lawyers know everything, and you gotta read case law and read statutes and briefs and write briefs. Yeah, those are a few of them.
Thanks for sharing that. So if people want to, you mentioned earlier that you're working on this, you got this book out there that's Amazon bestseller about helping lawyers when they get out to manage the business side. How would they, let's say they wanted to get in touch with you that way, or they wanted to buy your book. Do you have any social media sites or websites?
Got to have social media these days. On Amazon, it's just Fireproof, Mike Morse. You'll find the book. Digital audio. I actually read the book into the Audible stuff. My website is 855mikewins.com. Fireproofperformance.com is our book's website. I'm on all the social media channels. We have a really robust YouTube channel. If you just search Mike Morse Law Firm, we have our award-winning commercials on there. We have a podcast called Open Mic on there. We have blooper reels and fun videos that we do with clients and other people on there. So we have we have over 20,000, almost 20,000 followers on our YouTube channel, which is fun to do. And I'm doing a podcast weekly like you are, Zach. And it's great fun meeting lots of new people and stuff. So they can find me if they want to find me.
And so your podcast is more about, is that about the business side of law, or is that more of helping clients? Or
it's helping clients. We're focusing a lot on the criminal justice system, which is something I don't practice in, but wrongful convictions, exonerations. I'm interviewing people who spent 20 years in prison who are wrongfully convicted. I've had Chris Hansen from NBC on there. I've had some big time people on there. We have over 3 million downloads. And so we're having fun. I don't promote it a lot. This is the first time I've actually mentioned it in a while, but we're coming up to our 100th episode. So I'm pretty proud of it.
That's pretty cool. Check that out if you guys are out there listening. Now, Mike, we did have a couple of questions that came in the old-fashioned way via email, and I wanted to ask them to you. So the first question that came in is do you recommend, since I haven't had exposure to law, that maybe working in a law office as a paralegal first and then seeing if it's something right for me while I'm in school?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had lots of people come in and say, I'm thinking about law school. Can I work in your mailroom? Can I, take out the garbage? Can I help you in any way? I want to just sense the energy of a law firm. And there's lots of law firms, I'm sure, that would let you do that, would let you shadow, would let you, to be a paralegal, you need a degree. So
right.
I'm not sure they're going to go get a degree and then go to law school. Although I have had paralegals love the law so much they did go to law school after getting their paralegal degree. So yes, I think it's a great idea. I've done it for a friend's child. They came and worked for me for a summer, loved it, went to law school. And so there's lots of ways to do it, but I think it's a great idea.
The next question comes in, and this might be a little bit dated, but for the LSAT school exam, any advice on tips to have a higher score on the LSAT exam? I guess the LSAT exam is the test that you have to take to get into law school.
So it's been about 30 years since I took it. I don't have any tips. except I remember taking the prep courses and I studied really hard for those. I took lots and lots of sample tests, and I think I took the test 2 or 3 times. Maybe. I don't remember, but study. Old tests were a key for me.
Gotcha. Last question that we have here is, what's one piece of advice you would give a student going into college?
Going to college. So I have 2 college kids, and I think, college is what you make of it. And you can go to college and just, party your way through, cheat your way through. My advice is to get the most of it. Of course, you're going to have some fun in college, but, try to focus as much as you can, meet as many people as you can. Be careful what you post on social media, because that will come back to haunt you one day. I tell my kids that all the time, because as an employer, we are looking and it never goes away. So don't be putting those bong pictures of you on there. Don't be doing silly stuff on there, because you may not realize it when you're 18, 19, but one day people are going to be looking at it. So that probably, Zach, is the better advice than the other stuff. But, be careful. And the other piece, I did have a law student ask me this recently. I did a law student podcast. It's not too early to start working on your personal brand and getting good social media accounts and being thoughtful about it at an early age. And if you're an industrial type person and you're thinking about that in the future, get a good URL early, get a good handle early, post smart things and creative things early. It's in this day and age, it's not too early to start when you're 18, 19. And because one day it'll help you.
Yeah, I love the social media aspect. We actually, for our career library, had an FBI agent on yesterday who people were interested in maybe becoming in the FBI. And our number one piece of advice is to watch what you're posting to social media, because one post could disqualify everything of your work if your dream was ever to work for the FBI. She talked about how 16-year-old that posted were actually disqualified at 29 years old for what they posted when they were 16 or 17 years old. So I think it's great information that you're giving. Good. So well, Mike, we appreciate your time. We know you're very busy. Obviously, you're juggling a full schedule. And so we appreciate this. It's been a great learning experience. Thanks for sharing about how you're helping others open up practices and running successful law firms. We really do appreciate your time. Thanks for giving back today.
My pleasure, Zach. Anything I can do for any of your students, reach out to me, connect with me on social media. I'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good, Mike. Have a great day.